Hi guys. Hi, Rabia here. On my first solo IG live, I'm giving you guys a chance. Oh, hi, Center for Change. I know who that is. Where are you, Center for Change? I think I know, but I'm not sure. Hi, Holly. I've known Holly, we go back decades. Oh, you're in California. Yes. It's only like 6 o'clock there. It's dark, late at night over here. Almost late at night. Who else? I appreciate y'all joining me because it is late for many of you, or dinner time or happy hour time. And so if you can have happy hour with me, why not? I've got water as my happy hour. I'll go ahead and start sharing what my purpose is tonight on this particular topic of fertility, infertility, and all the shame and secrecy around those of us who don't just get pregnant and have babies and there are no complications and everything goes smoothly, and somehow that is supposed to be how that is what women do. We get pregnant, we have babies, no problem. And we don't talk about how many of us struggle to become parents. And it's not just women. Men struggle too. Hi, Julian, Lily. Men struggle too. And there's a lot of shame around it, but it's incredibly lonely. That's what I went through in my journey, is that it's incredibly lonely, and there are so many insecurities around somehow you're not a whole woman, or you're not able to do something that it seems like every other woman can do, whether or not they want to. So I wanted to share my story. I see a lot of people in my practice. I'm a psychotherapist. I see a lot of people come in for infertility or problems around not being able to conceive. Many of them feel as if they're being punished for mistakes they made. There are many women that feel that this is a punishment for abortions, for having multiple sexual partners, for waiting too long, for not putting having children over education and career, and then many people are having babies later. I want to talk specifically, I'm not talking about gay couples today because that's not my experience. I'm sharing a story, my story, that I went through in 2006, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I am just now able to share it publicly because, number one, I think it's important that anyone that's going through this know that they don't have to hide it. It's not shameful. It doesn't mean you're defective or that you're being punished. And the desire to become a mother, if it is on your heart, it is meant for you. we don't know how it'll happen. It can happen through adoption, through fostering, to rescuing a child from another country. We become mothers in so many different ways, and I think we limit ourselves when we believe that it can only come from our bodies. So, having said all that, I found Mr. Right a little late. I was 40, and we went right away into having kids because a 40-year-old doesn't have a lot of time, if at all, to have a child. And we went straight for IVF upon the recommendation of my doctors. And in the IVF process, for any of you that have gone through it, are going through it, or think they will go through it, it is horrible. I don't know how else to say it. It's hard. It's a full-time job. There are many, many doctor's visits. First, there are many tests to see if you are a viable candidate for IVF. As it turned out for me, my first test was a histo... Oh, I have so much trouble saying it. I wrote it down. A histosonogram, something like that. Anyway, they put saline inside your uterus, and then they use an ultrasound, and it sort of shows how your uterus is. And in my exam, it turned out that my uterus had a septum in it. So it was divided by a septum. And the doctor at the time told me that if I get pregnant, as the baby grows, there may not be enough space for it in my uterus, and that there was an 80% chance that I would lose the baby as it got older, as it grew in my uterus. And so she recommended getting it surgically removed. I did. And we were all ready to go through it. And we went through IVF, that route. We thought it was direct, quick, no time to waste. My uterus is good. And we got pregnant on November 13th. And I want you to remember that date because there's a reason why I'm saying November 13th. So November 13th, 2006, I had 5 embryos. And embryos, it was a combination of my egg and my husband's sperm. And they mix it up and let it grow for a couple of weeks. And you take all of these injections to get your body ready. And I did everything. I did my walking. I did yoga. I wrote letters throughout the process to my embryos and my future baby or babies. And we got pregnant on November 13th, 2006. The doctor transferred 5 embryos into my uterus. And 2 weeks later, we got the great news that we were pregnant. One of the embryos had succeeded. It had lived, survived, and we were now pregnant. And I remember just crying, happy, but crying. And it was right before Thanksgiving, and I thought, oh God, this is like the best Thanksgiving in the whole wide world. Like, I have so much to be grateful for. And I felt great. I didn't have morning sickness. I felt almost embarrassed to say it now, but I felt like I was a whole woman, that my body was doing what it was designed for. And I also felt, because my husband is younger than I am, that this was sort of proof that I wasn't ready to be put out to pasture, so to speak. And so that pregnancy was really good. I didn't have morning sickness. I was happy. The baby was thriving. And my husband and I, found out the gender. We were having a girl, and we named the girl Noor, Noor. And Noor, in Arabic, and I may not be translating it exactly right, but it's a light, a guiding light or a divine light. And that's just how I felt. So that's what we named her. And I started buying little girl baby things and maternity things for me. And I was just happy. I don't know how else to put it. I felt happy and whole and in love and all that stuff that we think is just sort of like a given. And then on March 15th, I was 20 weeks pregnant, just on the edge of being 20 weeks pregnant, and I started bleeding. And I called my husband, and we went to the emergency room. And, let me back up a little bit, because right before that, I think the week before that, I finally started to feel like the little flutters of the baby kicks. And so that's like when you're like, oh, it's really in there. It's not just on the ultrasound. When I look at the screen, there's like a human being growing inside me. And so I could feel her, and I would talk to her. And by then I was writing her letters by her name. And on March 15th, when we went to the emergency room, the first thing they did was do an ultrasound. And you know how you know when you look at someone's face that it's not good news? And I knew then the radiologist couldn't tell me what he saw, but I knew from his face that it wasn't good. So it turned out that Noor had, in her kicking, had kicked one of her feet out of my cervix. And what they call that is having an incompetent cervix. So now that I thought my body was like working, and I'm all woman, right? My cervix is incompetent, and my baby has, it couldn't contain her excitement, is how I saw it. And so we had no choice but to deliver her. And I will tell you, the nurses at Texas Women's Hospital were amazing. I got the whatever in the spine, can't think of the word right now, because it's very emotional for me. Epidural. I got the epidural, and it was just a waiting game. And I was surrounded by two of my sisters. My mom was there. My husband, two of his sisters were there. And it's one of those things where I remember every single thing. I remember the lashes on one of my nurses. And I remember telling her, oh, your lashes look so pretty. But those of you that have been through trauma, everything becomes heightened and crystallized. And to this day, so many years later, I remember everything. I remember the temperature of the room. I don't remember what anyone was wearing. But everything else I do. I remember my mom crying, and at some point I delivered my daughter, and at first I didn't want to hold her, but the nurses said, no, you have to. It's good for your healing, and I'm so glad that they knew and that they insisted, because it was absolutely critical that I got to hold her. And the last few seconds she had, 'cause she was too young to survive outside the womb, you know, I got to be with her, like outside of my body. And so it was, I'm sorry. It was a gift that that stays with me, you know, as you can see, and why I don't talk about it publicly, because it is very emotional. And so we had her, and they took, you know, like, again, Texas Women's Hospital was so amazing in, you know, giving me like hand and footprints and all of that. And I cherish them to this day. And so then I went home, you know, the next day, and I remember feeling like, wait a minute, I went in pregnant, I'm lactating, but there was no baby to feed, you know, or no baby to, it was probably the loneliest feeling that, there was no way my husband could understand. He tried to understand that, he knew it was hard for me because it was in my body, and it was my body that went through everything. And, but there was he couldn't join me in the grief the same way. And I know that, you know, 20 weeks isn't like many women who deliver, and upon delivery, you know, they, thank you, Lily, that upon delivery, their baby doesn't make it and they have a stillbirth. So by no means do I want you to feel sorry for me, or do I feel sorry for myself, because I would never trade that experience. I mean, outside of it never having happened, which would have been great, but I will never trade that experience, because my entire concept of life shifted. It became crystal clear what's important. And more than anything, it's about love. And it's about life. And the grief was intense, and there was a sweetness to it. And I know some of you can relate to that too, that because our hearts are cracked open from love, by love, they then are filled with sadness at the loss of the person that our heart cracked open for. And there's a sweetness in that feeling, because it all comes from love. And I felt loving. I think I loved everything, and not cockroaches, but everything else. I remember it had rained, and I was moving snails out of my driveway so they wouldn't be run over by the car. And it was in one sense, a very magical feeling. And I am a better person. I'm a better therapist. I feel more deeply because of all of that. And I'm proud of myself for being resilient. The other thing that had happened in my grief, because in a miscarriage, there isn't a body. It's invisible. The loss is to the outside world invisible. So there's not this physical thing to prove, or to show your loss. And as human beings, we need to grieve. We need the rituals around death and grieving. And I say that because it's not just in miscarriage. If we lose someone, so many people died during COVID. And so many people were isolated from loved ones. And they couldn't be there to be with the physical body. And so it's really important. I stress this, a little off topic, but I stress that rituals and grief are important, and we need physical representations. And so when there's not a grave or an urn that carries ashes, I decided personally to get a lemon tree, and as like a symbol of something that I would always have of her. And all the letters I had written, I kind of buried them in the soil, and my husband and I had our own funeral. And so to this day, that lemon tree we call Noor's tree, and sit out there, and I water it and nurture it and all of that. I will say that there was no way I was going to give up on becoming a mom. It was one of those things, and I think many of us that are willing to go through the torture, in a way, of IVF treatments, and the sort of sense of failure when our bodies don't work right. Those of us that will go that far, or are willing to go that far, we kind of want a baby at any cost. And I was really, really privileged that, because insurance at the time didn't cover any of this, that my parents were in a position to help me financially. And if that had not happened, I really don't know what I would be sharing with you now. And so I 100% think that healthcare should cover the desire to grow a family and the difficulty in that, and help those people who don't have money to be able to have the same opportunities to have babies that those of us who are blessed financially or have that privilege can do. And so that's something in the system that really needs to change. And I hope it does. We decided to go through IVF again. I was not going to quit. I didn't care the toll that it took. But before we could start the next round, I found out I was pregnant. This time I was pregnant naturally. And I was just like, oh my God, this is a miracle, like my body works. And those of you that have struggled know what that feels like, that as a woman, when your body doesn't work at something so basic, right? That's what we believe. And humankind came from a woman's womb. So I was thrilled. I was thrilled my body could do it. I will tell you, I was scared every single day of that pregnancy. I was on bed rest for most of the time. And I grew up in a very medical family, and the literature, and there are a lot of scary things that tell us to get this genetic test and that genetic test and make sure that the baby's okay. And my family was insisting on an amniocentesis, and that is a little bit of an invasive procedure where the doctor goes in and takes a little bit of the placenta or the amniotic fluid. I'm not exactly sure, but he goes in and then analyzes and does a genetic test, and then can let me know what we need to be prepared for. And I knew, here's the other thing I tell women. We have a knowing. We have this knowing that is ancient. We have a knowing that is visceral. We feel it. It's often whispers. And it is a divine gift to have that knowing. We just get conditioned out of listening to our knowing. And I did not listen to my knowing. And I had the amnio. And a week later, my water broke. And it's absurd, right? Sometimes when tragedy strikes twice, it was laughable to me, you know. And the thing that went through my mind was the song "Another One Bites the Dust," and it seems, I don't know, dark, but at the time, it was just incredibly absurd that this happened to me a second time. And I did everything right, and it happened anyway. And went to the hospital. It was another girl, and this time I didn't have sweet grief. I had anger. I had, I hated God. I was so pissed off at him. And I'm not a religious person, but I guess I'm a believer. And at the time, I definitely believed that this was a way of making up, like the universe making up for having lost Noor. And but I hated God. I was so angry. And I thought, what the fuck? You know, why did you get me here? You know, no artificial anything, nothing. You got me here and you took it away from me. You know? And I lost my faith. I was full of resentment and bitterness. And more than that, it also affected my marriage because my husband has a daughter from his first relationship, and she's beautiful. She's like my bonus daughter, but he wanted another child, and I desperately wanted a child, and I could not do that out of my own body. And I remember thinking, oh God, he's gonna think, why did I end up with her? Like, should have married younger. Maybe we should vet first if we really want babies. I don't know. But it was a feeling that when our bodies fail us as women in something that we believe is so basic to women, that the sense of worth is lessened. We feel less worthy. And that is how I felt. And I remember telling my husband, you can leave now. Like, you don't have to stay married to me. Find someone younger and have a baby. And it sounds ridiculous now. At the time, it seemed like a rational comment, you know? And I think he looked at me like I'm effing nuts. But it was how I felt at the time, and I felt like I needed to give him that permission. But he didn't. He stayed with me, and I'm thankful for that. And I will say that I did lose faith. I stopped believing in things. You know, I had learned so much in my first pregnancy about traditional Chinese medicine and meditation and Shakti yoga and all of these things that women have been doing for thousands of years. You know, I got acupuncture. I ate such a clean diet. And the reason I got a lemon tree is I had quit sugar, but I would use lemon in my tea, caffeine free, or herbal. I would have lemon in my tea and lemon in anything that I would have used sugar for. And I just thought, well, a lemon tree. So that's the story behind why I picked a lemon tree. But I just quit. I quit. I remember when I had lost a lot of blood in the second delivery, and they had kept me in the hospital for 5 days, and I asked for the chaplain late at night, the first night, because I was so angry with God. And I asked the chaplain, I'm like, well, can you still chaplain me? I don't really know what that means, but can you still, because I'm not Christian, you know, I'm Muslim, and you know, and he said, no, we can still talk. And I said, well, I don't know why God would do this to me. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, well, what if God is just as sad as you are? And at the time, it was touching. A few days later, I didn't give a shit. I didn't care if God was sad. I was mad. And it took several months. And actually, fear that I had for myself, because after I got home from the hospital, I basically decided every single day whether or not I was going to live that day. Every single day. Can I live without a baby? And do I want to? And is this life worth it? So I still did what I needed to do. I was in my internship, being a therapist, and I'm glad I chose every day to live. And at some point, I started believing again. I went back to therapy. I went on some fertility retreats where I learned about belly dancing, which I highly recommend for anyone. But it's an ancient art form that women did to get their bodies ready for delivery, because we didn't have pain meds and epidurals and all of that for centuries. And so I love that feeling, and I found a therapist who also did chakra healing, which is why I'm a chakra healer as well today. So a gift that came out of all of that. And after some time, I started believing again. And there was one book I read, which I want to recommend to anyone going through this or has gone through this. And I know this is backwards, but it's called Spirit Babies. And it's a very different perspective on the journey of becoming a mother. And it really took things out of the physical and put it in the sense of the timelessness of souls, and that when it's so on your heart to be a parent, it's because there is a spirit baby around you that wants to come to you. And I thought, oh, this is why I've had this desperation, because I know there's a child out there that I am supposed to have. And I just really recommend Spirit Babies. It was beyond helpful. I recommend it now to my clients going through this, or that have suffered loss, or feel that somehow the baby that they may have aborted early on is now punishing them, when the spirit world and the physical world are different. And I'm not trying to sound woo-woo, but the soul is different than the physical body. And the soul of the child in your womb, they join when the baby takes its first breath. And during pregnancy, the soul is kind of in and out, you know, and isn't necessarily attached to time the way we are. So it brought me a lot of peace. And going to regular acupuncture brought me a lot of peace. And the support of my husband and my family and my parents brought me a lot of peace. And eventually I was ready to give it another go. And in 2009, I was sitting in my living room with my youngest sister, and she said, you know, I have these eggs that I'm not using, and I'm divorced, so no man on the horizon right now. Not really sure if I want to have a baby, so why don't you use my eggs since I'm not? And what a gift. What a gift for my sister to say, here, take my eggs. And I, to this day, there are no words that can express the gift that a woman gave to me from her own body. And she wasn't the only woman that gave me this gift. And so we went through the process. We, went through counseling sessions that the fertility clinics require. I went through my own thing of, okay, well, how am I going to feel? This is not my child. I mean, it's not my egg. It's my sister. So it's still, I know all of the relevant medical history. Like I said, I grew up in a medical family. So I know all of the relevant medical history that I may not know if I used an egg donor from a stranger. Even though egg donors are gifts, I think they're angels. And so we did. We got my sister's eggs. She did the whole IVF stuff. And she had acupuncture, and they got 4 embryos, and one of them took. And but we knew that we couldn't use my body. And let me back up a little bit. We had decided at that point to find a surrogate, and the technical term is actually a gestational carrier. It's Abdul. It's a gestational carrier. It's not exactly a surrogate, because a surrogate uses her own eggs as well as her own uterus to get pregnant. And so this was a gestational carrier that we were looking for. And there are agencies that interview and do background checks and find women who are generous enough to offer their wombs. And we found an angel named Megan. Megan was young, married, 2 beautiful daughters, and really wanted to help people who couldn't have their own babies. And to this day, there are no words that I can express to her, her husband, or her kids at what a gift that was. And I'm saying all this because there is no shame in growing your family the way you get the opportunity to. And if that means you use the benefit of what other women are gifted with, and women are so amazing in the way that they rise up and help each other. Hi, Nicole. And help each other. It is women have come through for me in a way that is inexplainable, and I am forever in gratitude of my sister and of Megan and her family. And if you remember, I said November 13th, 2006, 5 embryos were placed inside me. My daughter, Zara, was born through Megan on November 13th, 2010. So I think all along, God kind of had my back. I just didn't know it. And all of the trauma, the pain, the knowledge that I gained, the people that I met, that entire journey opened my world. It made my life richer. It gave me such humility and such a reverence for what people will do for each other, especially women, because this is a very sacred thing, your eggs and your womb. And there are no words. So November 13, 2006, 5 embryos, took a while, different egg, different body. November 13th, 2010, I was gifted with my daughter Zara. And she is a culmination of every embryo that didn't work. She is a culmination of the daughters that I lost. And she is absolutely 100% my daughter. She has known from the very beginning that it took three angels and my parents' financial help to bring her here. That is how much I love her and wanted her. And I'm her mom. I don't want to criticize couples that decide to keep it a secret if they are using an egg donor. It's a very personal thing, but I know from my work in mental health that secrets have a way of coming out. And it can be very damaging for someone to find out later in life that somehow the person they call mom or dad may not technically, biologically, be their mom or dad. And it can be very traumatizing and ungrounding. And I just want to normalize that for me. I made the decision early on that I would not keep a secret about how my daughter got here from my daughter, and that no one else was going to know things about her coming into this world that she didn't know. And that also she felt how much she was wanted. And it was funny, the other day we were sweeping up leaves, and so she asked me a lot of questions because she's nosy like that, and not shy at all. And she was asking me about, and she said, "Oh, mommy, I feel so sorry for you that you couldn't have your own baby." And I said, yeah, but look at what I got. I mean, I didn't know then. In 2007, my first miscarriage. And then later that year, in my second, when I was questioning, what the fuck am I doing? You know, why am I continuing to do something that maybe isn't meant for me? I am so glad. And one person said this to me, Beth. She said, well, what if that just means you're just trying more, or you just have to try other things? And I thought, oh, okay. Maybe I need to broaden my idea of how it's all supposed to happen. And I say that to couples now, or to women now, single women. If it is on your heart to become a mother, go for it in any way that uses your skills of mothering, which is nurturing, which is unconditional love, which is creating something and growing it. At the time, I started my private practice because I thought if I can't have a child, then at least I can grow this practice and nurture my clients. And that was another blessing that came out of this. And I just want you to know that it is a tumultuous journey. It is a spiritual journey. It is something that shows incredible resilience. It takes a village of sisters to bring this about. Medical science, I think, where it is now, it has come from, I know that some people of certain religions or parts of religion may feel that IVF is somehow not natural, or artificial insemination is somehow not natural. And I think it's absolutely natural, because the knowledge came, and we as humans took that knowledge and made life better. Because having a child by choice, willing to go through anything to become a parent, those children grow up not questioning their worth. We don't take for granted what it means to be a parent. And I won't lie, I still, in those first few weeks of having a newborn, 5 a.m., I remember thinking, why did I do this? Because this is a lot of work. And it is. And then we feel guilty for having those thoughts, but they're normal. They're normal thoughts to not want to be sleep deprived, and to be okay with not knowing what to do with this living thing. So science comes from God, and I'm not trying to go against anyone's religious beliefs. You don't have to do it that way if it doesn't fit for you. For me, it is a journey that there's no amount of book knowledge, school knowledge, that can teach me what those experiences taught me. What all of those years of being helpless, hopeful, hopeless, full of love, full of anger, full of fear. The second pregnancy, I was scared every single day that, is today the day that I'm going to lose the baby? And I would even tell God, all right, dude, if you're going to take this away from me, can you do it now? Because I have a lot of morning sickness and I'm on bed rest, and this is before Netflix and all of the streaming. So it's what do you do? And I had all of those thoughts, and I'm not ashamed of them now, although I was at the time. And but I'm not now because they were just human. And my feelings. And what I want to say to all of you, for the men, the husbands or the partners that are watching this, and yes, a small percentage of, it's a lesser percentage that it's a male fertility issue. And I think that's a whole nother field that probably needs to be discussed, but I'm not doing it tonight. But for men, you won't know what to do. And I tell women, it's okay that your husbands or partners don't know what to do and are stumbling through this. It's just, no one teaches us this. And it's something that men cannot do and will never have that experience, and it's humbling for them. And most partners feel incredibly helpless, and they feel they're letting their partners down or their wives down at not being able to tend to their moods going through this. But it made my marriage stronger. It showed me what a man my husband is, to be there with me through all of it, to sleep in the hospital rooms, to not treat me as if I have failed him, or I failed as a woman or as a wife, or that he's sorry that he married me. And I couldn't have picked a better partner for me. There are so many more options that are available now. There are early testings. I will tell you that if you have a gut feeling or a knowing not to do a particular test, please listen to that feeling. My amnio, turned out I was positive for group B strep. And group B strep is a bacteria that can live in our gut. And many of us that come from developing nations, or I come from a third world country, and so it's bacteria that is 1 out of 4 women have this particular bacteria, and the doctors don't test you for it until you're somewhere around 36, 37 weeks pregnant, so that during delivery they can give you IVF penicillin so that the baby isn't infected with group B strep. I didn't know, because I never got that far, that when I had the amnio, I was already positive for group B strep. And so that was introduced into my uterus from that amnio. And it poisoned, it killed, and later on, I told a friend of mine who was going through IVF to get tested early. And she did. She got tested very early. She went through IVF and was pregnant with twins. It turned out that she was positive for group B strep and was able to take care of that. So she has now teenage twins, so I believe that my experience, sharing it with you, with other people that are in my life or that come into my life, serves a purpose. It doesn't mean it hurts less or it makes the hurt okay. Hurt is human. Pain is human. It doesn't mean that I have to forever feel like a victim, because everything I went through has absolutely helped someone else. It has absolutely made me a better therapist. It has made me tenacious in not letting things stop me from what is on my heart. And I want to give any of you thinking about or going through this or have gone through the challenges. It doesn't make you less of a woman or a man. So I do want to point that out, but I'm speaking specifically to women. It doesn't make you less whole when your body cannot do what one of its designs is for. And I say this, I normally do lives on YouTube and Facebook, and I end every single episode by saying that you're a miracle. You are absolutely a miracle, because there's a 1 in 400 trillion chance that egg and sperm will meet, go through, hang out, and end up in you being here. And so your being in this world is a miracle, an absolute statistical miracle. And I don't want you to forget that. And you can keep anything in your journey private. That is your right to keep your process private. I hope you will not keep it secret or judge yourself as being less than or ashamed or defective or broken. And if you can push the medical industry or the healthcare industry to please make IVF and other treatments affordable for all women, please support that, because I was gifted from my parents, and I was gifted from my sister, and I was gifted from Megan, who kept Zara nice and safe. And surrogacy was hard. It was hard for me to not know what was going on. She lives in another city, and it was hard for me to not be there. I had no control. And those of us who like to control things, this is really a challenge, but I hope you will welcome it as a way to realize there are some things that we just can't control. And we just hope for the best and hope that things go the way they want to or they're supposed to. And for those of you that have faith or that have a spiritual belief system, the entire time from November 13th to 2006 to November 13th, 2010, unplanned. I didn't know this until I reread my letters. God had my back. The universe had my back. The divine had my back. There was a design and a purpose. And whether or not that's factually true, it doesn't really matter, because I believe it, and it gives me hope, and I hope it gives you hope, and I hope it shows you that to not ever give up on your dreams, on the things that that are on your heart. It just may not come the way that you planned it, or the way that society says, or the way everyone else did it in your family, or your friends. And it's also okay to let your friends know, if they are pregnant, that, hey, this is tough for me. I love you. I'm happy for you. It's just tough for me right now. There was a long time I couldn't go to baby showers, and I was happy for people. I just couldn't. I was not ready to participate in some of the things that I think are every person's right to have. But I also had to respect where I was at. So I want to leave you with this. Get rid of your shame. It serves absolutely zero purpose. Zero. It is indicative of feeling like you're not enough, or you're not whole, or you're broken, or you're bad. None of that is true. Do not believe that. Don't believe anyone that tries to shame you either. And please don't shame yourself. Keep whatever you want private. Ask me whatever you want. DM me. I will be following up this particular episode on my regular YouTube and Facebook Tuesday night at 5 Pacific, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. I'll have Monica Robertson. She's an integrative OB-GYN doctor, and Sadhna Singh, who was the woman who did most of my acupuncture through all of the fertility process. So they're going to be my guests. If you don't catch any of this live, I will have it posted on my YouTube channel. So if you think it can be helpful to someone, please share. You can click on my bio here on Instagram, and it'll take you to, it has the link to the YouTube channel and all of that. I should have it posted sometime tomorrow. And then the follow-up show. And so if any of you have questions or need more information, hi April, hi Patricia, any of you that have questions, DM me, email me, reach out, look on YouTube, and know that you are absolutely not alone in a very, very lonely, challenging journey. You're not alone. There are millions of us, and I'm one of them. So I've kept y'all over an hour, so thank you so much. If you want to know more or want to know some of the different treatments, tune in Tuesday night, February 15th. And if you miss it, it'll be on my YouTube channel. And you can click on my bio for that. I really appreciate you spending time with me and listening to me. And I'm with all of you that are going through this or have gone through this. And you are loved, and you're not alone.